it's going to be an incredible part of my character building because I've seen failures, man, and it just builds character.
Man, I love it. With that idea of seeing failures, tell us about one of the biggest failures you faced and how you overcame it, how you learned a lesson from it even.
I'm so glad you asked this question, man, because there's one particular, and I don't know that I like consider it like a failure, but I mean, it was a very low moment for me. Because again, it's like the highs and lows, man. God is just keeping me humbled and then showing me what I can have and then bringing me back to earth. And then, it's like this middle ground. So I don't know if you're familiar with Kirk Franklin,
Yeah.
you know? So Kirk Franklin has a studio in Arlington, which is where I live.
Yeah.
And I found this out through my ex-girlfriend's dad is a multimillionaire, successful dude. So at the time, this was like last year in like near October or so, or he had actually couple when I first started making music, he encouraged me, "Hey man, you should go, knock on Kirk's door and just try to get your foot in the door," encouraging me to essentially like offer any kind of service that I can offer to get in there, right? Like
Yeah.
Kirk Franklin, big name, worked with a lot of important people, probably would
Real.
enjoy the fact that I do hip hop, right? And so I put it off for like a good 2 years, man. Like I was like, there's no way that's gonna work. I'm a random stranger. There's no way like it's gonna happen. But by the time I had put out, I was working on my fifth album and I had just put out my fifth album. And by that point, I had confidence in myself. I was like, I know what I represent. I know my brand, I know my style, and I know where I'm going with this vision. And so I did it. I knocked on the door, security guy answered the door. Like I got the studio address from her dad. And I knocked on the door. The dude gave me a phone number to call, which I was like, that's already further than I thought I'd get. I called the number, a lady answers the phone. I'm like, hey, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm looking for studio experience and I would love to intern if I can with you guys. And she's like, don't know who you are, but sure, send me an email. I'm like, okay, that didn't seem like it went well. Like I didn't think
Yeah.
it all went well. So I wrote out this like really long email, like overly explaining myself. And then I sent that and I instantly regretted it. But luckily, by the grace of God, it didn't send. Like there was like a problem with the connection. So I rewrote the email, way more simplified it. Just, hey, here's who I am. Here's links to my stuff if you want to know more. And sent that and somehow got an answer. She was like, yeah, okay, come to the studio. I'll remember this forever, man. She's like, come to the studio on October 13th and we'll get you like to help us set some stuff up or whatever. So I went in and I was helping Kirk Franklin's engineer set up stuff in the studio. So I'm like in his studio now. And I'm like, what am I doing here, bro? I'm like a random kid. Like these people don't even know who I am. And I had told Mike, his engineer, I was like, hey, is there any way like I could come back and like, do you guys need any more help or anything I can do? And he's like, yeah, you can come through tomorrow. Like Kirk's gonna be here tomorrow. And I was like, okay, great. So I'm back the next day and I walk in, security opens the door for me. And the first person I actually get introduced to when I walk into the studio lobby is the lady that I spoke to on the phone initially, who turns out to be Kirk Franklin's manager. So like meeting his manager now. And then everybody that's in the lobby, there's a few other people on his team, and they're like, oh yeah, Kirk's just right in there. You can go ahead and go on in. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on right now? Like, this is weird. I go up and now I'm in Kirk Franklin's studio and there's nothing between me and Kirk Franklin but a studio door. So I'm like, I can see him in the window. And I'm so scared, man. I don't want to like be rude and like open the door. So like I'm like standing and somebody else opens the door. So I kind of squeeze my way in. And I say hey to Mike because Mike's in the room. He's the engineer, right? And that's the one dude that I know there. So I'm trying to be like, hey, I know somebody here. And Kirk turns around and he sees me and he's like, "Oh, you must be our new intern." And I'm like, "I guess." Like, and he shakes my hand. He's like, "What's your name?" I'm like, "I'm Harlan." And he's like, "Harlan, I'm Kirk. You can call me Kirk." And I'm like, "I know who you are." Yeah, I know. You're like, this
Like a
dude's like legend. Yeah, living
yeah.
legend. And I introduce myself. I'm just being as polite as I can, man. I'm introducing myself to everybody in the room, in the most like trying to be humble way, you know what I mean? And I'm really pushing myself there because like, I'm there to genuinely serve. Like I really am trying to genuinely serve. And like, obviously I'm hoping that this will turn into something, right? Like maybe Kirk will sign a deal with me or like hear my music or whatever. But I'm also not trying to be like an ulterior motive, like, oh, I'm just here to, I'm really thinking, what can I learn from this
Yeah.
experience? Like, how can I, why am I here? Right. Like there's a reason I'm here. It feels like this destiny thing. So I end up hanging out there, man, because I'm like, I'm gonna stay here as long as I can stay here. I ended up staying there till like 5 in the morning. I got there at like 7:30 PM. So like it's a whole overnight studio session and they're working on a song. And it's amazing. Like I'm watching my dream happen in front of my eyes.
Mhm.
And at some point in the night, his manager leaves and you know, she tells me, "Thanks, you've been really great and everything." She's like, "I can't guarantee that you'll be able to come back though, just because she's like, we haven't had an intern in like 15 years." And I'm like, "Oh," I said, "Well, thank you for even having me here at all. I'm just honored that I got to stand in here once. It's just more motivation for me, and I appreciate it." And I go back in and I'm hanging out with, at this point, it's me, Kirk, Mike, and a couple other guys in the room. And it gets late in the night and I'm realizing now it's kind of setting in for me that like, oh man, if this is my like last time being here, then I'm gonna regret like not asking Kirk to like hear my music. Like maybe there's a chance something will happen if he hears my stuff. And finally I get the courage to ask and he has the best reaction ever. He's like, "Yeah, man, like I'd love to hear it." He's very enthusiastic with me and nicest dude on earth, by the way. Like if there's anyone I've met who's like a star, like like sometimes when you meet your
Yeah.
hero, you're kind of worried that they're not actually gonna be who you think they are. No, dude, like Kirk Franklin is the definition of like he is a man of God. Like you can see God within his soul when he talks to you. He's so down to earth, you know what I mean? Yet very powerful presence at the same time. Like he's intimidating, but like in a way that's like doesn't make you feel disrespected or anything. He's just really accomplished and incredible. And so he's so nice to me, man. And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to hear, but can we do it like on another day?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Like your manager just said I might not be able to come back." And I remember, dude, it was like a movie. He like looks at me, he like puts up his fist like to give me a fist bump, and he goes, "Oh, you'll be back." And I'm like, "What? Like, what is going on?" Like, just my brain's exploding, man. I'm like,
Yeah.
because especially at this time in my life, like I'm wanting it more than ever at this period. And so essentially what happens, I leave at that point, I go back to like my normal life, right? Like I'm working at a hotel at this point, right? Just doing my day job and working on music and stuff. And I hit up his manager and I say, "Hey, when can I come back?" Kirk mentioned I could come back like in a couple weeks. I just wanted to follow up with you. And that's when she calls me. And basically it ends up being, long story short, she lectured me on the fact that I had asked him to listen to my music. She wasn't happy about it. She was like, "Hey, there's like legalities and all this stuff. And these are tight relationships and like you should have come through me first before asking him something like that." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, Kirk," I'm asking the dude himself, like, like I mean, he again, he had a good reaction to it. He didn't have a problem with it, you know what I mean? But I understand, like, you know what I mean? Like these are their
Yeah.
jobs, right? Like her job is to protect him and his circle, you know what I mean? So it makes sense. And so I was just respectful to her. I apologized. And she was kind of like, basically, like, "I don't know that you'll be able to come back. Like, I'm sorry." And I was like devastated, man, because that was like, I thought that was going to be it. Like, this
Yeah.
is my big break moment. If I screw this up, then I'm never going to have it, kind of thing at the time. And I remember, dude, that's the most humbling moment, man. I remember sitting, like, she called me when I was at work. And so I like took the call and I ran into the
Yeah.
luggage closet and after I hung up the phone, man, I'm just broke down crying in the luggage closet just by myself, just like, and I remember that was the first time in my life that I like really like, I like begged God, man. I was praying and I was like, "God," I said, like, just please, please, like, I want this more than anything. Like, just let me, I just want this to be my career, man. I'm tired of doing the 9 to 5s and I'm
Yeah.
tired like being not like like people not respecting me just because I don't have the credibility of fans. Like my art is real and I really want it to be seen. And I was just remember begging him, man, like just God, I said, "I'll do whatever it takes. Just tell me what I have to do and I will do it." And that, I think that was a real awakening moment for me. That was like all right, man, like it's time to go harder because I think that was the first time I also realized that, you know, nobody can do this for me. This is
Oh,
something that I have to go and get. Like people are going to open doors for me, but at the end of the day, it's my job to do the groundwork. And this is something that I say too a lot that has to do with my faith that I also understood from this experience, which is it's also not my job to do the miracles.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Yeah,
that's
like
good.
that's for him.
Mhm.
Like he handles. This is what I say. This is the deal I have with God. I allow him to handle the miracles and I handle the groundwork. When
Yeah.
he gives me an opportunity, I don't waste it anymore. You know what I mean? I don't
Uh-huh.
take a chance. I say, "You know what? This is the opportunity." They say luck is when preparation meets
Yeah.
opportunity. That is a really important quote that I don't think people get enough. It's
Right.
I'm not kidding you, man. That's the biggest accomplishments I've had since then have been because I came prepared whenever those smaller opportunities